Working toward and receiving this degree became an opportunity for me to blend my passion for the church with my passion for mental health awareness and education. I also, before I go into this, want to acknowledge that talking about mental health challenges can be emotional and overwhelming. So if anyone needs or wants to talk after this evening's program is over, I will be available to listen and help you connect with appropriate resources and support. So I first connected with the UCC's Mental Health Network and learned about WISE in May of 2018 when I attended a day-long conference at St. Paul's UCC in Downers Grove, Illinois. This informative and educational conference was part of the implementation of the 2015 General Synod resolution to develop a network of churches that are welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged, or WISE, for mental health. On that day in 2018, I was excited to see a couple of people from one of our Wisconsin conference churches, and I wondered how we might work together to make WISE a focus for our conference. The answer didn't come until 2021. Sue Kaiser, a member at Ebenezer in Sheboygan, had served as a delegate to the General Synod in 2019. At that synod in Milwaukee, Sue was introduced to WISE, and her passion was sparked. She returned home and spoke with her pastor, Lori Stewart, about the possibility of Ebenezer becoming a WISE congregation. A WISE team was formed, the work of becoming a WISE congregation began, and in January of 2021, Ebenezer UCC became the first WISE congregation for mental health in the Wisconsin Conference. It was around this time that I became aware that conferences and other organizations could also receive the WISE certification from the UCC's Mental Health Network. I knew that if we wanted to encourage our congregations to join Ebenezer in becoming WISE, we needed to work toward becoming a WISE conference. This would enable us to be a support to our congregations as they move through the process. We established a small WISE team for the conference. The team included both Sue Kaiser and Crystal Clemmy, as well as other representatives from around the conference. As a team, we created a WISE covenant that was brought forward as a resolution of witness at the 2022 Wisconsin Conference annual meeting. This led to a year of intentional study of mental health and what it means to be a WISE congregation. With over 30% of our congregations reporting that they had studied the issue, we were able to bring the resolution to the floor of the 2023 annual meeting, where we voted overwhelmingly to become a WISE conference for mental health. And within about 48 hours, we had received our certification from the UCC's Mental Health Network. So what does this mean? What exactly is a WISE congregation? A WISE congregation strives to be welcoming, inclusive, supportive, and engaged through offering radical belonging, which includes those living with mental health challenges, brain differences, and substance use disorders in the congregation, the community, and the wider world. A question I am often asked is, why is WISE important for the church? Why are we focusing on this? As people of faith, we are called to be in community. Following Jesus' example, we are called to show God's love to others, bringing together a community of God's beloved. And this includes those living with diagnosable mental health conditions and those experiencing mental health challenges. Jesus' commandment in John 13 is clear-cut and takes away any wiggle room there might be to choose not to love. Jesus tells his disciples and us, love each other. Just as I have loved you, so you also must love each other. This is how everyone will know that you are my disciples, when you love each other. In the UCC, we like to use the word extravagant. Jesus' love is extravagant. His love goes beyond measure. There are no exceptions. Love is unconditional. If we are to be disciples of Jesus, we are called to love each other. There are no ifs, ands, or buts. In Psalm 23, the psalmist offers an image of God as a shepherd who protects, supports, and comforts the vulnerable and those who are hurting. God provides connection for those who have become disconnected. God provides a safe place to rest for those who are worn down and exhausted. We are created in the image of God. As people of God, as congregations, and as a conference, we are called to protect and advocate for the vulnerable, comfort the hurting, connect with the disconnected, and provide a place of calm and rest for the exhausted. Since 1 in 4 individuals live with diagnosable mental health conditions, it's safe to say that individuals in your congregations are dealing with any variety of mental health and substance use challenges every day. This impacts not only the individual with the mental health challenge, but also their loved ones, their family, their friends, and their caregivers. If I were to ask you to raise your hand if you have been impacted by a mental health challenge, a brain disorder, or a substance use disorder, I suspect that most, if not all of us, would raise our hands. But due to stigma, many people may be reluctant to seek help professionally or to speak about it with their pastor or other members of the church. However, an atmosphere of openness and acceptance in a congregation makes members, friends, and visitors more likely to feel safe and free from judgment. This acceptance and sense of safety can help create a place of belonging where truly everyone, no matter where they are on life's journey, is welcome. This is why the church should be focusing on whys. So the other question I get asked a lot is, how do you become a wise congregation? It's a process. It involves education and communication, and it requires a vote of the congregation. The good news is you do not have to do it alone. The UCC Mental Health Network provides a lot of resources on their website, including a downloadable toolkit to help a congregation move through the 10 steps to becoming a wise congregation. And there is a handout on the resource table that breaks down those 10 steps, just gives an overview of it. But I'm going to share the 10 steps condensed into 8. Step 1 is what Sue Kaiser did following the 2019 General Synod. She talked with her pastor, and then that moved on to conversations with congregational leaders. The next step is to form a WISE team. In your congregation, you would want to invite 5 to 12 people, probably depending on the size of your congregation, to serve on this team. If you have members who are open about living with a mental health challenge, invite them to be a part of the team. That doesn't mean they're necessarily going to say yes, but let them know that they're welcome and that their opinions and their thoughts and experiences are valued. Begin creating a culture of compassion and mutual respect in the congregation. Some ways of doing this are to include prayers for mental health. When someone's having a mental health struggle, making them feel comfortable to share that in worship, in a prayer request. They don't need to identify themselves if they're not comfortable. But if we get used to hearing about mental health in a worship service, we're going to be more welcoming and open and welcoming to those who are experiencing those challenges. It can be included in sermons. Have sermons that focus on the issue of mental health. And then another really simple welcoming thing would be to offer meals. How many of you have congregations that share meals with people who maybe have a health crisis, they've been in the hospital, someone in their family has died? Now, how many of you offer meals to families who are living with a mental health crisis, or even just a chronic mental health issue? It can really help to create that culture of welcome and compassion and respect when you include those situations in your meal teams or your meal programs. The third step is to connect with the UCC Mental Health Network. You will be assigned a liaison to walk with you through the process of becoming wise. And I have found that this is a step that a lot of times our congregations don't realize they actually need to do in order to become wise. So the earlier you do that in the process, the better. Also contact me so that the Conference Wise team can also be a support to you and your congregation. The fourth step is to create and organize mental health educational opportunities for your congregation. You might have a panel of speakers or an individual speaker come. It might be someone who's living with a mental health challenge, or it might be someone out in your community who is a resource person for those who are living with mental health challenges. Have a mental health resource table set up in your church. Or perhaps you can do what Ebenezer has begun, and that is having a mental health fair. My church, Salem UCC in Verona, decided to offer an exhibit, a 6-week exhibit and speaker series. We were able to get an exhibit called Nothing to Hide. It's a photo exhibit that has been created by people living with mental health challenges, and with those photos there are also text that explains the story behind the photos. And we had that displayed and open to the public, and then every Sunday for 6 weeks we had a speaker come in either in the afternoon or evening to speak on a different topic. Other ideas include having movie nights, book studies, but the most important thing to remember is start small and know that it is making an impact. Step 5, draft your WISE covenant. Receive feedback and guidance from your liaison from the Mental Health Network as you do this. And then when you are ready, share the covenant with your congregational leaders and with your congregation. After you've done that, when you feel that you're ready, your congregation can take a vote on becoming wise. And assuming that that's a positive outcome, then you want to certify and celebrate becoming wise with your congregation. You would send your covenant and the results of the vote to the UCC Mental Health Network, and they certify you as a wise congregation. They'll post you on their website, and you will want to post it on your website and use lots of ways of communicating that you are wise. Celebrate this. Invite your community in. Make sure that people in the community know that you are a wise congregation. And then the last step is to live into your covenant. Ways that you can do that include celebrating Mental Health Sunday in May, or at whatever time of the year that works for your congregation. I know for Ebenezer, it did not work to put it into their May services, and so I believe it's September, I think, that they celebrate their Mental Health Sunday. You might want to form support groups in your congregation. That doesn't mean that you become mental health experts. It just means that you're offering support groups where people can come together and support each other. Or you could invite existing support groups to come in and meet in your building. Stock your church library with books and resources about mental health. There are books and resources that are excellent for all ages, from your littlest children on up through your oldest adults. Share your story about becoming wise. Share your story about living with mental health challenges. And then, most importantly, hold events that invites the community and other surrounding churches to come in and be blessed by the knowledge that your congregation has gained and the resources that you have available to share around mental health. In closing, I would like to share one of my whys for becoming wise, and I know some of you have maybe heard this before. But my maternal grandfather lived with bipolar disorder. This really meant that my entire family lived with bipolar disorder. It was something we did not usually talk about outside of our family. Most of the time, everything was fine. He took his medicine, his lithium levels were usually fine. But this was not always the case. A variety of factors could cause his lithium levels to become wonky. The disease has a way of making people believe that they don't need their medication. My grandfather was no exception. When this happened, we were all affected, and we all lived under the cone of silence. Unlike when we were living with my grandmother's cancer, I do not remember asking for prayers. We did not turn to the church for support. No one showed up with a casserole or a dessert. It was very isolating, and during these times we lived under the heavy cloud of stigma that surrounds mental illness and the stress that accompanies caring for someone with a serious mental illness. I want to be part of a church that lives out Jesus' commandment to love each other, just as Jesus loved us. Jesus reached out to, welcomed, and loved those who were isolated, silenced, and shamed by stigma. Jesus worked to break down the barriers that were created by stigma. Jesus saw value in each person. Loving others as Jesus loved us means breaking down the barriers created by stigma, creating a place where we can all be open about who we are and how we are, knowing that we will be welcomed, included, supported, and invited to engage fully in the life of the congregation. Jesus declares that people will know we are his disciples when we love each other. I invite your congregations to join with other congregations in the Wisconsin Conference on this journey to becoming wise. May people know we are disciples of Jesus because we love each other and all others as Jesus loved us.